Come, Bender. You like being dead.
That's what they said about being alive!
Hulu's relaunched Futurama, and I've been watching the episodes. And so far, the season's been sort of okay. It's not been good, not bad. But the most recent episode was really bad, and I want to talk about it because it upsets me. Ooh, Bitcoin. You guys like Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin's in the news. So the newest episode of Futurama, How the West Was Ones and Zeros, is like a spin-off of a Western. Instead of mining for gold, they're mining for Bitcoin. You get it, guys? It's a Bitcoin episode. Okay, so this episode has a ton of shit going on, and most of it doesn't work. So I'm going to go through what each character's journey was and evaluate that rather than trying to give you a large overview of how the story winds together. I think it'll be obvious once we start doing it. Okay, so throughout the episode, what everyone does is just become like classic Western tropes, and they add nothing on it. Like there's no like added flares or anything. So Zoidberg goes from being a bad doctor to being a bad old Western doctor, and that's his whole arc. Nothing else happens. Roberto, instead of stabbing people with a knife, he stabs people with a knife gun. Hermes and son. Hermes' son hates him for no reason, for making him go camping, I guess. And then Hermes' son says he hates limbo until he gets run over by a wagon, and then his spine is broken so he's flexible, so then he suddenly likes limbo and the outdoors for no reason. There's no arc here. He just, because he gets run over, he likes to limbo. That's the whole plot line. Fry and Leela. Oh boy, more will they, won't they stuff. Isn't that great? So Leela becomes like a bartender, and she works for this lady whose whole bit is that she's bipolar. Like she'll be like, fuck you, but I love you. And there's no like jokes played into it. She just will say like a happy thing and then an angry thing, and that's the joke, even though there really isn't a joke. And then Fry works for this guy called the Borax Kid, who turns out to be a fraud. And of course, Leela has to like fall in love with him a little bit because we have to perpetuate the fact that, oh, will they, won't they, for the 11th season in a row. And so basically they find out that the Borax Kid is like a con man and a fraud, and he's stealing other people's work. And that's it. Nothing ever comes of it. They just, it happens. And it's an old Western trope. The con man. Amy and the professor mine for thorium and find Big Nougat. That's their whole arc. There's nothing that happens. In another old Western trope, Bender's sort of like a man on the land who buys a donkey, and then while singing a song, he breaks the donkey's back by jumping on it. That is his entire arc. Okay, so this episode ends with some inconsequential reveals and a Mexican standoff because we have to complete our old Western bingo. And the overall problem with this episode, if I had to boil it down, is that it's just a bunch of Western tropes. And Western tropes are fine. I would love to see the characters of Futurama do Western tropes and then have the sci-fi elements add on to those, or have their individual character elements add something to those tropes. But it's just these characters carrying out these tropes which make them uninteresting. It's just the son rebelling against the dad, like, I hate you, dad. Or Bender being the generic outlaw, or the generic people mining for gold, or the saloon girl. There isn't Leela being the saloon girl. Like, yes, her character is the saloon girl, but there's nothing about Leela that adds on to that trope. And this episode is just so devoid of anything added to the trope that I can't help but just think it's a little bankrupt. Especially when you're going to do another will they, won't they? Like, let it fucking rest. Like, they kind of half-assed it to make it like, we're really not going to do another will they, won't they? But I don't even want to think about that you might do it. Like, they just need to put it aside, just let them get married or something. Yeah, I'm rambling at this point, but my main point is that one of the great things about Futurama is it takes everyday things or tropes and then adds a sci-fi element and this unique comedy that brings life to it. And there wasn't that here. This just feels like moving through the motions. This isn't a reason to bring Futurama back.